Welcome to Finance with Fairbanks, where real-world finance comes to life. Remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Hello and welcome. My name is Dr. Fairbanks, and in this video we are going to work through one of my favorite financial modeling assignments, and that is retirement planning and forecasting. In this video we're going to work through two different approaches. The first approach is going to be a bit arduous. It's going to require a lot of calculations, and ultimately what we're going to be able to do is forecast our future retirement balance in today's dollars. In the second approach, we'll use what is known as a capital needs approach, and we'll be able to compare the analysis from approach 2 to approach 1. This one uses a much more simplified approach to retirement planning. It says, okay, based on your projected needs, what do you need to have saved at retirement and what do you need to put away to accomplish it? It's something that is taught in the Certified Financial Planning program. And it's an interesting approach. It's just a little bit different than the actual forecasting and the modeling aspect. Now, the last thing that we'll do in this video is we'll talk about the differences between a defined benefits plan and a defined contribution plan. We will also talk about the differences between a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA, and then we'll answer some questions about what we found in our analysis. Now, to get started, you will want to download this spreadsheet. And this spreadsheet has 3 worksheets or 3 tabs. We have Approach 1. You can see I've pre-built most of it for us. We have Approach 2. And then we have our Q&A, our question and answer that we need to fill in and answer all of these questions. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, I'm not going to fill this out for myself. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build this in a way that will allow you to go and adjust it. And what I recommend is that you use the exact same numbers that I'm doing here in this approach and in this video, and then copy this sheet to a new sheet and enter in your own data based on your current age, based on your anticipated salary, all of those things. You go ahead and adjust that, but to make sure that everything is consistent with what I'm doing in this video, please follow along exactly and then copy and paste the sheet so that you can adjust it for your own needs. I'm going to assume that I am a college student, an undergraduate student, and I'm going to go with an age of 20 years old. I'm going to assume a retirement age of 65, and I'm going to go with a life expectancy of 80. Now, of course, whatever your real age, you could put that there, and then you could adjust the age at retirement. And the way we want to build this model is so that it is dynamic and we can adjust these input parameters. I always encourage students to go look at their family history when we're talking about life expectancy. If you're just using averages across the United States, the average male is 77, that's their life expectancy. Females about 78 and a half, which means if we retire at age 65, we only spend about 12 years in retirement. Now, you can already see working months and retirement months, how many months we plan to spend in retirement. I'm going to do a little trick. If you hold the control key and hit the tilde button, which is right next to the number 1, it's the little wiggle, you can see the actual formulas within the spreadsheet itself. Again, please don't mess with the equations that I've already pre-built here, but you can at least see the backbones of what's going into these inputs here. Okay, I'm control tilting back and you can see the actual values in the cells. I'm going down to the salary. Now, this is where I encourage you to go look at your anticipated starting salary based on your major. The Career Management Center obviously has this particular information. So I'm going to do this for a finance student, and a finance student averages about $65,000 coming out as an undergraduate student. Now, the next variable or input that we need in this financial model is what is called an anticipated raise. Now, this is a nominal raise, and because you're so young and your career is just getting started, you're going to have, hopefully have a lot of promotions, and maybe you change jobs and get a huge bump in salary, things like that. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that I have a positive real raise. So I'm going to put 5%. Now, if I was building this for myself because I'm an academic and academics usually get negative real raises, I'd probably put 2% there, and you could see that my purchasing power would be declining on an annual basis. But again, we'll go with 5% here for this particular individual. One of the things that we need to look at when we are job hunting and getting job offers, hopefully you're fortunate enough to get multiple job offers, is to also, definitely look at the base salary because that's very important, but also look at the benefits. And specifically, what are the retirement benefits? Now, starting in 2025, this is really interesting. The Secure 2.0 Act is going to require and mandate that newly established 401k and 403b plans automatically enroll their eligible employees. Now, this is going to apply to any plan that was adopted and or created after December 29th of 2022. But here's the weird part that I didn't know about when I went and read more about this Secure Act of 2022 is the fact that it still gives the employee the right to opt out of their contribution. Obviously, if you don't contribute, you're not going to get the match. So that's a bit of a problem. And then if you're already in a 401k or a 403b plan, it's not going to apply to you. I hope this assignment at least encourages you to max out that contribution so that you get the most match possible. There's two key benefits to that. Number one, and a lot of people don't think about this, is by making a contribution to your 401k plan, you're actually reducing your taxes that you pay in that given year because that contribution comes out of your gross pay. So it lowers your taxable income. And then the second important thing here is if you're not making that contribution, your employer is not going to match and they're not going to put any money in. So you're missing out on those extra funds that your employer would have to put into this. And again, this is going to be firm specific. So I would encourage you to go look at different firms and maybe find one that you want to work for and you look at their match and contribution rates. Companies like Fidelity have fantastic contribution and matches. It's 9% on the contribution and 9% on the match. Here, as a Tennessee employee, as the state employee, our contribution is 5 and they match 9, which is really incredible. Then there's companies like Topgolf where it's not so great, and you put in 4% and they match only 1.5%. But either way, you still want to take advantage of that employee match because you're missing out if you don't. I'm going to be a little bit modest here. We'll go with a 5% match and a 6% contribution. That means I'm going to put in 6%, or this person's going to put in 6% of their gross salary, the $65,000, and the employer is going to match that at 5%. Now, I've added a third variable to the model, and that is an IRA contribution. I strongly encourage everyone to not only make those contributions to their 401k, but also put as much money as you possibly can into an IRA while you're young. And we'll talk about these differences here in a little bit between a Roth and a traditional IRA and maybe which one suits you best given your young age. But one of the things to think about here is the max that you can contribute on an annual basis as of 2024. They do adjust this amount, the limit, each year. It's not tied to inflation like Social Security, which is kind of unfortunate. I wish they would. I wish they'd keep bumping it, by inflation. But they do increase it. Is $7,000 as of 2024. It's going to be a little bit difficult for this individual to probably put $7,000 of their $65,000 gross salary into an IRA. But if they could, that would be absolutely fantastic. We're going to go ahead and go with somewhere in between. We'll go with $3,500 for the IRA. Another reason why you want to take advantage of this while you're young is because as you start to get those promotions and you start to get those raises, you can be phased out of being able to make contributions to an IRA if you make too much money. So we have to take that into consideration and why, again, you want to take advantage of this while you can. Our next input variables are dealing with the rate of return, which I call the ROAR. We're going to have two different rates of return here, a rate of return on our retirement account while we're working and a rate of return on our retirement account when we're in actual retirement. Now, some would argue that we need to keep these the same. I can tell you personally, my parents have done that. They pretty much kept the same risk tolerance from working to retirement. That's suited them very well, but that doesn't suit everybody, and that isn't for everybody. Again, this is, and you're going to see the sensitivity analysis of this here in a little bit, but the rates of return matter a lot in terms of how much you will anticipate having at retirement. Now, I'm going to put 9% here. Most financial advisors are going to tell you that's too high. I disagree, but that's my opinion. And I disagree because we saw with the Ibbotson data that the rate of return that the S&P 500 earned since 1925 was well above 11% per year. So I think I'm actually being pessimistic. If I'm tracking the S&P 500 and averaging 9% per year or greater, I'm going to be very, very happy with that number. Now in retirement, I'm going to go with a 6% rate, and I may even go lower in terms of my forecast there, but that's the rate of return that I would anticipate. Again, taking less risk, having slightly less risk tolerance in retirement than while I am working. Now you're going to notice that I use the exact Fisher equation here to calculate the real rates of return. You might be wondering why did you do that, Fairbanks? That's a great question. I did that because I want to do this analysis from the perspective of today's dollars. That means that this retirement forecast is based on today's money. That means when we get to $1 million, you can conceptualize what $1 million means today, but you may not be able to conceptualize what 3.5 million not adjusted for inflation actually means. Now we have two new terms here. This is the nest egg and the bequest amount. I'm going to assume that we have $5,000 already saved for retirement, but for the vast majority of you, and it's okay, you're going to have zero as a nest egg. That's totally fine. In terms of the bequest amount, or the amount you want to bequeath to your heirs, I would never put zero here. Now, hear me out on this. I do believe in retirement that you should spend your own money. That's your money. You worked hard for it. You saved it. You invested it. You should reap the rewards of that. My concern here is that this life expectancy number, we assumed 80, but what if we live to 85? My great-grandmother lived to 98. My grandfather lived to 92. I would be really concerned if I didn't model a bequest amount of some amount. Maybe they have to put me in a retirement home, and those are very expensive. My children have to put me in a retirement home. So I'm going to put $250,000 here for the bequest amount, and that's just going to give me some cushion. I think that would be great to have a cushion there and actually pass on some money to my children. Okay, we can't go any further here. You can see we do have a few more cells to fill in this model, but we're going to go ahead and forecast our retirement now. I want you to type the value of 0 here in cell E3. We're going to use a little trick. We're going to go to our home ribbon, and we're going to go to this fill series. So there's a little tab, fill series, and you're going to fill the series right here. Okay. We're going to fill the column, so we want to check that box. Unfortunately, I can't enlarge this box for you. We're going to fill the column. It's going to be linear. Our step value is going to be 1, and our stop value is going to be 720. Now what this is going to do is it's going to create a column from 0 to 720, incrementing by 1. Make sure you do click columns because otherwise it'll go across the row. Go ahead and click OK. Straight down the column it went, and if I hold Control Shift and arrow down, you can see that it goes to 720, just like we wanted it to. Now you might be wondering, well, why did you go to 720? Well, that's going to allow us to make some major adjustments in our assumptions for the year of retirement as well as our life expectancy. So I just like to have a really, really long forecast. Now somebody like myself who's in their mid-40s, I really don't need to go that far out. That's 60 years from now. That would mean I would be living to 104. That'd be great, but also not very likely. Okay. Now, when we're looking at the age column, we got to follow this very closely. We're going to link it to our age. That's going to be B3. But what I want you to do is I want you to hit the key F4 on your keyboard. If your function keys aren't working, you can always just type the dollar signs. That's called absolute cell referencing. That locks in the 20. Now, the assumption that we're going to make here is that today is our birthday, and we just turned 20 years old. Makes things much easier on us. That means that we're going to be 20 for the next 12 months. Okay, notice that I stopped at time 11 here. That's the 11th month. That is because exactly 12 months from today, we are going to have a birthday. Now again, all of these values, that's 12 months, believe it or not, from 0 to 11 are going to be the same. Now here's where the trick comes in. Very important. We're going to type 1 plus, and then we're going to go up to the age at F3, not right above it, but all the way back to F3. And what that's going to do, once I double click this equation down, is it's going to give us a birthday exactly every 12 months. Pretty neat here. So just hit enter, click on that cell, and then hit this little box and double click it with your mouse. And voila, you can see here that we are allowed ourselves to work all the way to the age of 80 in this particular model. That's because we created a column of N from 0 to 720 months. That's 60 years from today. All right. We're not going to receive any salary today, so we're going to put 0 there. We're not going to be making any contributions. We're not going to get a match from our employer, and we're not going to make any IRA contributions today. That's the assumptions that we're going to make in this analysis, assuming really ordinary annuities, right? And then our balance here, very important, needs to be linked to our nest egg. That's B22. No need to lock it there, but it is need to be linked to our nest egg. Okay. Got a few more columns here to fill out. Now for our salary, what we want to do is this. Now the way I've set this model up is I'm assuming that we get paid once a month. I know that that's not the case for everyone. It makes the model simple. If you get paid, multiple times a month, maybe 2 times a month, once it's on the 1st and the 15th, just understand that you're going to have more compounding periods per year, and you're actually going to end up with more money because your EAR will be actually higher. So we'll just keep it in the monthly framework here. Our salary, we're going to take this salary, we're going to lock that again with the F4 key. We're going to divide it by 12. That's going to turn it into a monthly gross salary. Going to hit enter. I'm going to drag that all the way down to the 12th month. Now notice I'm going to leave that highlighted. If we go to the bottom of the spreadsheet, we can see that the sum of those 12 cells is $65,000. That is our anticipated salary over the next year. Now for this one, this is where the equation gets a little messy. We're going to take 1 plus the real anticipated raise, okay? I need to lock that cell. We're going to allow ourselves to grow our salary at that real rate of return of 1.94%. We are going to multiply that just like we did with the age. We're not going to go right above it, but we're going to go to that very first month. That's because we want to grow the entire $65,000 by 1.94%. I'm going to hit enter and double click that down. And what I'll do just to show you this is I'm going to highlight the next 12 months, that's 13 through 24, and you can see that we have grown the salary by exactly 1.94%. It's $66,262.14. So we're actually seeing a slight increase in purchasing power. That's the projection that we're going to get real raises over time. It's pretty nice. Okay. For our contribution column, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put equals, and then we're going to go to our contribution rate of 6%. That's B14. We're going to lock that with the F4 key. Again, just type the $signs if it's not working. We're going to hit multiply or the times sign and the salary. No need to lock that one because we want it to be dynamic. Okay, so we hit enter. Our contribution is going to be $325 in the first period. We'll go ahead and calculate the match in a similar fashion. We'll take the match rate of 5%. We'll lock that number. We'll then multiply it by the salary. Hit enter. Don't lock that salary. For our IRA, this is one that we could put a growth rate on this. We're not going to put a growth rate on this, but we could. We could maybe make it a percentage of the salary. We could have done that. That's okay. We'll just assume $3,500 across the board. So we're going to take the $3,500. We'll lock that number. We will divide it by 12. Again, you could assume $0 there for the IRA column. That's okay. But again, I would encourage you to obviously put as much as you possibly can into those accounts. There we go. Okay. Now here is the equation that we need. I'm going to go a little bit slower on this one because it's a bit complicated. We're going to go open parentheses, 1 plus. We're going to take our real working rate of return. That's in cell 18. I'm going to lock that. I'm then going to divide it by 12 to turn it into a monthly real rate of return. Close parentheses, multiply it by the value above it. That will allow us to grow the balance. Notice that your nest egg has a month to grow. It's going to earn a rate of return over the next month. It's going to earn some money, hopefully. And then at the end of that month, we're going to make our contribution. Our employer is going to match, and we're also going to make that IRA contribution, J4. You can actually have your IRA contributions set up with your employer so that it's automatically taken out of your paycheck. That's a very convenient option. Now I'm going to show you the equations here just in case you missed it. You can see all of the equations across the board, but really these are the four that we just built, okay? And I want you to highlight those four cells with me, and then I just want you to double click it down. That's it. We have forecasted our retirement balance. And so the question now becomes, how long does it take to become a millionaire in today's dollars? Because we're looking at real dollars, right? And I believe we will be a millionaire somewhere by the time we are mid 49. So just before our 50th birthday, it appears that we can reach $1 million. What if we go another 10 years? What if we go to age 59? Well, on our 59th birthday, we'll almost have $2 million. This is incredible. Then we'll go to age 62. It's one of the earliest periods you can get Social Security. It's going to be 2.365. If we go to fully vested in Social Security, that would be age 67. That gets us to 3.28 million. And if we really wait longer, we can get even more Social Security benefits if we wait to the age of 70. Almost $4 million in today's dollars. Okay? What I'm showing you is there's no reason why, if you're 20 years old, you cannot not get to $1 million by the time you retire. Now, the last thing that we want to do is have to scroll through this table every time based on a change of our assumptions, change in the salary, change in the age, change in retirement age, things like that. What we're going to do is we're going to create a function here. It's going to be XLOOKUP. We're going to go open two parentheses there because our lookup value is going to be the following. We're going to take our retirement age. We want this to be dynamic. Again, we're trying to make a financial model here. We're going to take that retirement age. We're going to subtract off our current age. We're going to close parentheses. We're going to multiply by 12 and then hit comma. So our lookup value is the number of months while we are working. I'm not using this number here in B7 simply because I've added 12 years to that particular number. All right. My lookup array, I want you to click on E3. You're going to hold Control-Shift with your keyboard. You're going to arrow down. That's going to highlight the entire column. You're going to hit comma. You're going to go over to K723. You're going to hold Control-Shift. You're going to hit arrow up. But now what I need you to do is I need you to hold the Shift key and arrow down one time because it has to match. If your arrays here or your cells that you're highlighting don't match up perfectly, this function will give you an error term. If you just want to type this rather than highlighting the cells, that works too. It needs to read E3 colon E723, comma, K3 colon K723, comma, where they're going to put quote, error in all caps. That means if we don't get a value, it's going to return the word error. We want an exact match, so that's 0, and we want to search first to last, 1, close parentheses, hit enter. There's the equation, and there it is. If we retire at age 65 on our 65th birthday, we will have $2.881 million. Now let's confirm that this equation is working the way it should. Again, this is what I don't like. We have to scroll through the whole table. Not a lot of fun here, but there it is, $2.881 million exactly on our 65th birthday. So that's pretty cool because now I can change my retirement age maybe to go to 60. Well, there it goes. There's my projected balance now. Go back to the original values here. Okay. Now we found how much we will have at retirement if we work to the age of 65. That's 45 working years. Again, based on all of these assumptions. We're going to run some sensitivity analysis on this in just a second. But now I want to show you the inflation adjusted value. So we're going to take that projected balance. We're going to adjust it for inflation because remember, it's in today's dollars. All right. So here's what we're going to do. FV, we're going to use our future value function. We're going to take a inflation rate. That's what we're going to take. We're going to divide that by 12 because it's going to be a monthly inflation. Our number of periods, we're going to go open parentheses, retirement age minus our current age times 12 again, that number. That'll be number of months. We're not going to have any payments there, which is really nice. And we're going to put comma negative this projected balance. Essentially, that's a present value because it's in today's dollars. It's in times $0. What you would actually have in your retirement account, this is really crazy. You ready? $11 million. So what that says is inflation adjusted value of $2.881 million is worth $11 million in your account when you retire if inflation is in fact 3%. That's incredible. So you would be getting essentially that 9% rate of return instead of the 5.825 real rate of return. We've adjusted it for, I don't know what year that would be, 45 years from today, so that would be 2069. Okay, $11,000 in 2069 is equivalent to $2.88 million today if we have an average rate of inflation of 3% per year. Okay, now what does that mean in terms of our monthly withdrawal? How much can we withdraw in retirement based on our assumptions of how much we want to leave to our heirs, how much we're going to earn while we're actually in retirement? I'm going to use the projected balance here. And what I want you to do is I want you to take this projected balance. I want you to Control-C it. You get your dancing ants. It's going to give you the copy. And then I want you to right-click, paste special the values. You can also just type it there if you just want to type the number as exactly as it appears, but that's the trick. I'm just paste specially in the value, and that's because in a minute we're going to run some sensitivity analysis. We're going to see the impact of waiting 5 years before retirement, or retiring 5 years later, or earning a higher rate of return or a smaller rate of return in our account. But this is the important number. How much can we withdraw each month while in retirement in today's dollars? We are going to assume an annuity due, which makes sense because you're going to take your first withdrawal on the first day of the month that you retire. We use our PMT function here. Our rate of return is going to be this 2.913%. That's the real rate of return in retirement. We're going to divide that by 12. The number of periods in retirement, we can actually use this cell B8. So no calculation needed there. That's 180 months. Our present value is the amount that we will have on the day that we retire. Okay. Let's go ahead and take that number. That's our projected balance there. The future value needs to have the same sign as the payment. Now, because we're going to be receiving these, what I need to do is I'm going to back up and I'm going to put a negative sign in front of that B25. That's because, remember, our cash flows have to have a story, and I want this to be a positive number because it will be an inflow, and I want that bequest amount to be an inflow as well. So my present value is negative. My future value is the bequest amount, what we want to leave to our heirs or leave us a buffer in the case that we live longer than expected. And then we're going to put comma, and our type is 1. That's the beauty in Excel, that we can just tell it, hey, look, this is an annuity due, not an ordinary annuity. We're going to close parentheses there. That's the amount on a real dollar basis that we get to withdraw every month while in retirement. $18,622.07. Again, that's in real dollars. That's also on a pre-tax basis. We'll talk about that when we get to the Roth and the traditional IRA. But your 401k, I can promise you, you will be paying taxes on those withdrawals while in retirement. If we annualize that, let's just multiply it by 12. And what is that number? I'm just curious. It's $223,000 at age 65. I'm also curious, what is your real income at age 65? We could have created Excel functions to do this for us, but I'm just going to highlight it. So when we retire, it appears that our real income adjusted for, not inflation, because it's not adjusted, but for our real raise, is going to be $154,193.76. So we're actually going to be able to retire with way more than we finished our last year of working, which is incredible. It's simply incredible there. I'm going to go ahead and leave that number. That's fine. Let's run some sensitivity analysis on this. What if, this happens all the time when I show this to the MBA students. What if we don't start this retirement plan until the age of 30? I just want to show you the negative impact that has on the change in the account. So let's go to 30. Everything in the spreadsheet will update. So now our age is different, our retirement age is different. And look at this, our new projected balance is only $1.47 million. Let's go ahead and convert that to a percentage with our number editor there. That's a decrease of almost 50% by just waiting 10 years. Just 10 years. It's a decrease of almost 50%. That's why you can't afford to do that. Even 5 years. Let's do 5 years. Let's go to 25. We wait till 25 to start this. That's a 28% difference in the amount that you'll have at retirement. That's why we've got to take the long run view of the world. We've got to anticipate, making these contributions for a long time. So you can see the impact on time. It's very, very critical in terms of these numbers. Let's retire 5 years sooner. Let's see what that does. Should have about the same effect. Yeah, 28% difference. Let's work 5 years more, work to 70. That's going to be a 37% increase. It's now going to be almost $4 million in today's dollars and 17 million inflation adjusted dollars. That's incredible. We'll go back to the original values. Okay, so let's reset. Everything's back to original. Percentage change in balance there is 0%. What does the 9% do? What happens if we only get 8%? So let's decrease this just by 1%. That's 100 basis points. Let's decrease this by 1%. Look at what that does. That's a decrease of 24.5% in your retirement account just by missing out on 1 percentage point. Now, this is not linear. If we were to actually make an extra percentage point on average per year, let's go to 10%, that will result in a 34.2% increase in your retirement balance, which ultimately means you can retire sooner, hopefully. That would obviously be the goal in this analysis. Moral of the story here is these numbers matter a lot, these input numbers, and your rates of return actually matter more than the number of years that you're working. You want to really make sure you understand the asset allocation within your portfolio and what rate of return are you earning on an annualized basis. That completes approach number 1, folks. We're now going to go into approach number 2. Now again, this is what the certified financial planning people teach. This is what they call the capital needs approach, so it's a little bit different. Again, here's our age, here's our retirement age, here's our life expectancy. Now I'm going to change this a little bit because originally I had set this up with our current salary. And that's not really relevant because, as we talked about, you get lifestyle inflation. As you start to earn more money, you're going to spend more money, unfortunately. Hopefully you can avoid that. But we saw that in the last year of our retirement, our real salary in today's dollars was actually going to be closer to $154,000. Let's go ahead and change that to $150,000. So by the time you're 65, your real salary will be $150,000. So I'm changing this. And let's assume that based on the capital needs, your lifestyle is going to change when you retire. Hopefully your kids are out of college, you've paid for all the weddings, you've paid off your house, you maybe buy your last brand new car, you won't have the same types of expenditures. You obviously need medical expenses and things like that. I put in a really cool link here. If you click on this link, it'll take you to the Bureau of Labor Statistics website. And this just shows you what the average consumer in the U.S. makes and spends on an annual basis. And you can see at age 65 to 74, the average income there is about $68,000. And then it gets really granular. It breaks down, how much they spend on alcohol and tobacco and food away from home and housing and everything else. And obviously medical expenses are a huge component of that. But based on our analysis, based on our forecast from approach 1, you're going to retire with a much better standard of living than the current people in 2022, based on that table, because they only have a salary of $68,000. That's what they're living off of, okay? So the first step here, calculate the salary needed. That means we're going to take our projected salary that we saw, and we're going to multiply that by our capital needs. What we're saying there is we're going to need 90% of that final year's real salary when we retire to maintain our lifestyle on a pre-tax basis. So that's $135,000. Now, we said we're going to retire at 65. Notice that there's going to be a sliding scale there. We'll be pessimistic. That's in today's dollars, by the way, these Social Security payments, and it also assumes max benefits, which if you work that long, you will get the max benefits. What we're going to do instead is we're just going to take this age 62. We'll be a little bit pessimistic here, okay? And then we're going to multiply that by 12. We're just going to turn it into an annualized amount that you would receive through Social Security benefits. So not a whole lot, and hopefully you do get Social Security 45 years from now. No guarantees, right? But that's what we're assuming in this model. You won't need it if you follow that approach number one. Anyway, salary difference is what we need to make up. So if we assume that we need $135,000 and we receive those Social Security benefits, we're going to need, that would be, what did I put here? Should be F4, not F24. F3 minus F4. We're going to need to make up the difference of $102,480. Okay, so now step number 2 is we're going to inflation adjust this number. So we're going to find the future value. We're going to take our open parentheses, our retirement age minus our current age, multiply it by 12. Let's just do this on an annual basis. We don't need to multiply by 12. I'm okay with that. That's our, that should have been number of periods. Let's try this again. Let's go FV. Let's go with our inflation, 3%, okay? We're going to keep it annual, make it simple. That's what they do in the CFP program. Our number of periods is going to be that difference, no need for parentheses. So 45 years there. Again, we want to make it dynamic. We don't just want to type 45. Our payment, we're not going to have any payments, so we'll put 0 there. And our present value is going to be this difference. So we're inflation adjusting this difference. It's a little bit different than what we were doing earlier, but we're following their methodology. That's how much we would need in inflation adjusted. Remember, our inflation adjusted number over here was $11 million. So don't panic when you see this number here. Now what we're going to do is we are going to find the amount that we need on the day that we retire. This will be directly comparable to the inflation adjusted value that we saw over in approach number 1. So we're going to use PV here. Now for our interest rate, we're going to use the real rate of return while in retirement. Our number of periods is going to be our life expectancy minus our retirement age. These are linked to approach 1. So if you change the values in approach 1, it will change the values here in this table. Our payment is that inflation adjusted annual amount. So I'm going to put a negative sign and that. And our FV here, okay, our FV here, we want to put a negative sign, and that's going to be the bequest amount. So we're going to take those withdrawals on an annual basis. We're going to bequest money to our heirs in the amount of $250,000, and probably should have inflation adjusted that number, but they don't do that. They don't even do a bequest, but we did, so we're going to put it in here. This is the amount that we would need to have on the day we retire, $4.818 million. That's not in real dollars, that's inflation adjusted. Okay, that's inflation adjusted, so we would be comparing it directly to that $11 million. Clearly, we're going to do way better than this. Now, the question is, how much would we need to put in to achieve this goal? So we're going to use the payment function. And you know what? I think I made a mistake. Let's go back for just a second. And what we're going to do here in this one is we're going to change it to a type 1 because it is an annuity due. All right, I messed that up. So make sure you go back, you change that cell to a type 1. Okay, need a little bit more now. That's okay, 4.95 million versus our 11 million. Not too terribly worried about that number. Our monthly contribution then is going to be an annuity due. We saw that we can do a match, a contribution, and an IRA in the prior approach. In this approach, they're just saying this is the minimum amount you would need to contribute to get to that number. We're going to use our rate of return. They're using nominal dollars here, so our nominal rate of return of 9%, we're going to divide that by 12. Our number of periods is going to be the retirement age minus our age times 12. And then our present value is going to be our bequest amount. We really need to think about our cash flow story here. I'm going to put a negative sign in front of that nest egg, not bequest. It's going to be the nest egg. Then we're going to hit comma, and we're going to put the present value at retirement. That's going to have a positive number. That means that this monthly contribution should have a negative value in front of it. And it does. So that's the minimum contribution that you would need to make per month starting today so that you can retire with this nominal dollar amount of $4.953 million and achieve your retirement goals at a minimum, meaning you would have 90% of your projected salary of $150. It's interesting to see what the certified financial planners do versus what we do over here in retirement forecasting. Okay, just a few things here to discuss in terms of our questions, and then we will be done with this particular assignment. First up, we have, what is the difference between a defined benefit plan and a defined contribution plan? Which is more common, and what implication does it have for the corporation overall? These are absolutely fantastic questions. So let's start with, what is a defined benefit plan? A defined benefit plan guarantees a specific retirement benefit amount for the employees based on factors such as history, years of service, and their age. Now, the critical part of this is that for the employer, the corporation, they're going to bear all of the investment risk. They're the ones responsible for the asset allocation. They're the ones that are responsible for ensuring that the plan is adequately funded to meet the promised benefits that they're giving to you. Now, this is what we would call a traditional pension plan. Most employers do not offer these anymore. It's very, very hard to come by in terms of these plans, and for a variety of reasons. One, obviously, being that the liability is on the corporation or the employer to make sure that they have enough to guarantee those benefits. Now, from the employee standpoint, there's some issues. If you work for an employer that goes broke, what happens to your defined benefit plan? I don't know. That could be really scary. If GM had failed, what would have happened to all the employees on those defined benefit plans? That's a little bit scary. The other part of this that people don't think about on these defined benefit plans is there would be no way you would have no bequest amount. There would be nothing to bequeath in terms of your retirement balance. So in that example where we have so much money at retirement, we would have the potential to leave a lot more money than just $250,000 like we assumed in the model in that circumstance. But with the defined benefit plan, usually they have it set up that if you pass away before your spouse is still taken care of. But beyond that, there's nothing to give to your children. So they would win on you not living to your life expectancy in that case. But if you obviously live a really long time, you never run out of those benefits. That's the nice thing about it. Okay. Now with the defined contribution plan, you contribute, your employer contributes, you are responsible for the asset allocation, choosing the portfolio, getting the rates of return that you want to have. Obviously the upside of this is that you have complete control, and if you want to leave money to your heirs, you can pass it along to your kids. The other part of this is the downside, and that would be, if you spend it all in retirement, there's no more benefits. It's gone, and you have to take that into consideration. It's the onus is on you to, properly allocate these funds and spend them accordingly. Okay, moving on. What are the key? Well, we didn't answer the question, which is the most common. Obviously, it's the defined contribution plan. Traditional pensions just don't exist anymore. Okay. What are the key differences between a Roth and a traditional IRA? What factors should you consider to decide or consider when deciding which IRA to choose? Okay. The number one difference between these two plans is the taxation of those plans, or the tax treatment. With a Roth IRA, your contributions are made on your after-tax dollars. They don't come out of your gross pay. They don't lower your tax liability. You're going to take that out of your net pay once you've paid taxes, and then you're going to make that contribution to your Roth. Now, the beauty of that is you're going to be paying taxes today, and your future withdrawals cannot be taxed, or at least not yet. So that's the key advantage of that Roth IRA. And being young and having lower taxable income and lower tax brackets and percentages, I would probably lean more towards the IRA versus the traditional IRA. Now, in the traditional IRA, you're getting to lower your tax liability. And the problem with this is that in retirement, when you're taking those draws from that IRA account, you will have to pay taxes on that information. The other thing that's often not talked about here is the required minimum distributions. For a traditional IRA, you are required at age 73 to start taking actual draws, even if you're still working. I had a colleague at Texas Tech that was still working, and he had to take draws because he was older than 73 from his IRA. Roth IRAs do not have RMDs. They don't have required minimum distributions. So something to also consider that. Also consider your future tax rate. If you're going to have a really high future tax rate, take advantage of the Roth now. If you think your tax rate's going to be lower in the future, maybe not taking advantage of the Roth makes sense. The other part of this is you've got to look at the income limits, because the income limits for traditional IRAs and Roth IRAs are very, very different, beyond the scope of what we're going to talk about in this class. But that's the key difference between these two. And again, being younger and in lower tax brackets, I'd probably lean towards the IRA, or the Roth IRA, excuse me. Okay, next question. How does the rate of return during the working years impact the final retirement amount? It can impact it significantly. Let's change that to say approach 1 and not approach 2, because that's where we were doing the sensitivity analysis. If we work in an extra 5 years, we saw that we have an additional 38% in our retirement account. That's just incredible. If we retire 5 years sooner, we only lose about 28% in that retirement account. So it's definitely important, definitely something to consider, when we're going to retire. Based on your model, this should say approach 1, I apologize. How much will you have saved on the day you retire, and how much can you withdraw each month before and after tax? Now, we didn't do the before and after tax, but we did do the how much will you have on a real basis, on an inflation adjusted basis. Here's how much you can withdraw each month. That would be the annual equivalent of that in real dollars. And if you want to do an after tax, you could simply just take this number and multiply it by 70%, assuming a 30% tax rate. There you go. That would be 13% overall. That answers that question. Compare your results from approach 1 and approach 2. Will you have enough money saved to sustain your projected retirement? If this is you, in this hypothetical example, we will absolutely have enough money to sustain our retirement. In fact, we will live well beyond the average person currently in retirement in 2022. And then I'll leave the last question for you. It's my favorite to read. That is, what is your biggest takeaway from this retirement activity? Please use a different font as you're answering these questions, and you can answer them directly in this text box. If you want to use red, I'm entirely okay with that. But please do answer these questions as thoroughly as possible, and then upload your spreadsheet to Canvas. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, goodbye.